She sang about heartbreak for 50 years. And in the end, heartbreak is exactly what she left behind. If you grew up anywhere near a radio in the 1980s, you know this voice. That raspy, powerful, almost aching voice that turned a simple love song into something bigger than life itself. I'm talking about Bonnie Tyler, the woman behind Total Eclipse of the Heart, the woman who made millions of people believe, for 4 minutes at a time, that love really could feel like the end of the world. But here's the part most people don't know. While the world was singing along to her songs, Bonnie was quietly building something else entirely. Not just a career, a fortune, a legacy, a life so carefully constructed that when it finally came crashing down, the people closest to her weren't just grieving a voice, they were grieving a whole world that had suddenly gone silent. Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what she left behind, who's inheriting it, and why her own family says the hardest part wasn't losing the money, it was losing her. Let's start at the beginning, because you can't understand the ending without it. Bonnie wasn't born into money, not even close. She grew up as one of 7 children in a coal mining family in a small village in Wales. Picture a modest house, a big loud family, and a father who worked underground every single day just to put food on the table. That's where Bonnie Tyler's story starts. Not in a mansion. In a coal town, she left school at 16. No safety net, no plan B, just a voice, and a stubborn refusal to waste it. She sang in local clubs, got discovered almost by accident, and by her 20s she had a record deal. Then came the moment that changed everything. She partnered with a songwriter who understood exactly how to turn her raw, husky voice into something theatrical, dramatic, almost cinematic. That song became Total Eclipse of the Heart. It shot to #1. And Bonnie Tyler, the coal miner's daughter from Wales, became a global name overnight. Now here's where it gets interesting. You'd think a song that massive would set her up for life. But the truth is more complicated and honestly, more human. Bonnie didn't own the rights to her biggest hit. The songwriter did. So even as that track crossed 1 billion streams decades later, she was earning far less from it than you'd expect. Imagine that. The song that defined your entire career, playing in movies, in commercials, in karaoke bars around the planet, and you're only seeing a fraction of what it generates. So, how did she end up wealthy at all? This is where Bonnie's story stops being about luck and starts being about strategy. She and her husband, a former athlete turned property developer, quietly built one of the most diversified portfolios you'll ever see from a musician. While other artists were spending their fame on cars and parties, Bonnie and her husband were buying land. Farmland in Portugal, farmland in New Zealand, dozens of properties across London and the English countryside, horse stables, a villa in Portugal worth well over $10 million, complete with its own recording studio. Think about that for a second. While the music industry was busy telling her that streaming and touring were where the real money was, she was building wealth in soil and stone, in something that couldn't be devalued by a bad contract or a changing industry. That's not just smart. That's rare. By the time she passed away, her estimated fortune sat somewhere around $40 million. Some reports pushed that number even higher. A career that started in a coal town ended in a financial empire most people could never imagine. But here's where the story stops being about money and starts being about heartbreak. Bonnie had been married to her husband for over 50 years. 50 years! Think about how rare that is in any life, let alone one lived under the spotlight. They met when she was still young, still unknown, still just a girl with a big voice and a bigger dream. He was her first serious relationship. And through decades of fame, touring, and everything that comes with a life like hers, they stayed together. There's one detail that makes this story hit even harder. Bonnie and her husband never had children. They tried. She got pregnant in her late 30s and lost the baby. They tried again, and it just didn't happen. In her own words, years later, she said it simply wasn't meant to be. So, when people ask who inherits a $40 million fortune, the answer isn't a son or a daughter. It's the one person who stood beside her through every high and every low for over 5 decades. Her husband. The man who built an empire with her, brick by brick, property by property, year by year. And that's exactly why her passing hit so hard. This wasn't a sudden tragedy out of nowhere. Bonnie had been fighting through a serious health battle. She'd undergone emergency surgery. She spent weeks in a medically induced coma. And then here's the gut punch: she woke up. She came back. Fans celebrated. Her team gave hopeful updates. For a moment, it looked like she was going to beat it. Then, without warning, she was gone. Her family described it as unexpected. Not a slow decline everyone had already made peace with, but a sudden, brutal turn after what looked like recovery. Can you imagine that whiplash? Watching someone you love fight their way back from the edge, feeling that relief wash over you, and then having it ripped away just as suddenly. That's the part her family says was unbearable. Not the fortune, not the properties, not the horse stables or the villas or the $40 million sitting in the estate. It was the silence in a house that used to be filled with that voice. Because here's the thing about Bonnie Tyler that a net worth number can never capture. She wasn't just an artist who made money. She was a woman who came from nothing, who built something extraordinary, and who did it all standing next to the same person for over half a century. Her husband inherits the properties. He inherits the wealth. But what he really inherits is 50 years of memories that no dollar amount will ever replace. And maybe that's the real lesson buried inside this story. We look at celebrities and we obsess over the number. $40 million, 20 houses, a villa with its own recording studio. But wealth like that was never really the point for someone like Bonnie. It was a byproduct of a life spent working, loving, and building something that mattered. So the next time Total Eclipse of the Heart comes on the radio, and you catch yourself singing along without even thinking, remember the woman behind that voice. A coal miner's daughter who became a global icon, who built an empire most people could never dream of, and who, in the end, left behind not just a fortune but a family with a silence they never wanted to hear. If this story moved you even a little, let me know in the comments. And if you want more real stories about the legacies celebrities leave behind, make sure you're subscribed, because this is just the beginning.